Welcome to the Wednesday, May 21st meeting of both the Milton Select Board and the Planning Board. I'm going to call us to order. And do you want to call your group to order? And then we'll get
Yes,
started?
why don't you call your group to order and introduce?
Oh, sure, we can do some
and
quick
then we'll do the
introductions.
same.
I'm Ben Zoll, I'm the chair.
John Cohane, Vice Chair.
Megan Haggerty, Secretary.
Winston Daly, member.
And I guess, is Richard? He should be joining us.
Okay, great. And now I would like to call the Planning Board meeting to order and begin by introducing the members of the board and any staff that's online.
Cheryl Tagayas, Secretary.
Jim Davis, member.
Mag Gilfield, member.
Sean Fahey, member.
And Meredith Hall serving as chair. I don't know if we have Julia with us this evening, but I just wanted to welcome her. Cheyenne's on vacation. Okay, I think Julia was off today. Okay.
All right,
Great.
please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we're going to begin with public comment. Each speaker, per the rules of the Select Board, will have 3 minutes to make their remarks. I'll give you a brief warning at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll be keeping track of the... No, that's all right. You got it all set?
Ready.
Ready. I'll be keeping track of the 3-minute time. Mr. Milano will be keeping track of the overall allotted time for citizen speak, which is a maximum of 21 minutes. I think that some folks have already signed in. And if you're joining us online, we will also call on the online folks. All right. Okay, so we're going to begin with Ms. Hodlin.
Good evening. I'm Christine Hodlin. I live on 112 Maple Street, and I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 2. And I come here again to voice my opinions and, I guess, request of all of you regarding the MBTA zoning. I don't think it's a secret. I am for us trying to adopt a compliant plan so that we can get back in compliance with the state and get back some of our funding. I've been to several planning board meetings and listened to them, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone in, all the money that we've spent on consultants, and the changes that have been put into the most recent 25% plan that you had worked hard to get to. It addressed so many of the issues that had people were unhappy with in the very beginning, which was why I think we've caused this huge division in our town, and I would love to see us get back to moving on to other more important things than keeping us separated. So I'm asking you to reconsider and revote that plan that you had. I don't think it's a secret that many people in town would like us to be in compliance with that plan. We at this point now even have possibly the school building funding grants that are available possibly in jeopardy, and we will not be able to have those, and that is so very important to so many people in our town. So I'm here again to please ask you to reconsider your vote that you had and to consider all of us who have come to this meeting so many times and pleaded with you for our case. Thank you.
Ms. Friedman Hannah.
Good evening. I'm Karen Friedman Hanna. I live at 3 Norway Road in Precinct 2. I'm a town meeting member for 30 years now. And I have been the one who submitted the citizens petition for the 25% compliant plan that is the same plan that that the planning board had agreed on and then revoked. I too, as Chris said, am here to ask you to please reconsider and consider putting forward a plan that both the select board and the planning board and ultimately, hopefully, the warrant committee can all agree on with this 25% compliant plan. In my 30 years of being a town meeting member, I have never gotten so many phone calls and emails as I did after the planning board meeting where you voted to revoke the vote that you had made. People were just astonished by it. And again, Precinct 2 is one of those precincts that is very heavily involved with this MBTA plan, where it will make a big difference to our neighborhoods, but people have come together in various meetings to discuss it, to understand it, and to support it. And we feel that now is the time to be compliant. Various attempts have been made to go the route of the adjacent community, and from everything I've read, and I've read a lot about this, everything has indicated that it is not a viable option. We are going to be considered a rapid transit community, and we need to do the right thing at this point. And just one last thing, just on an embarrassing note, I work in Needham at the Beth Israel Hospital in Needham, and I have many colleagues that I work with, and multiple people have come up to me and said, "What is it with your town? Why can't they do this?" And they said their towns, most of them who live in Needham, but other ones who live in other people who live in other towns have said, "You guys seem like you need to get your act together." That's embarrassing. On top of it just being the right thing to do, it's now, I don't understand it, quite honestly. And I'm really, really hopeful that you will reconsider your thought process and reopen this and vote to go with a compliant plan, or vote to go with where the
10
town
seconds.
meeting at least can vote whether we should go with the compliant plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It occurs to me, Mr. Milano, that if we adjourn, if the planning board adjourns after our public discussion, that they won't have an opportunity to respond to citizen speak, because that usually happens towards the end of the meeting. So, although I looked at our agenda and I don't see citizen speak response as an item.
Correct. That said, the comments so far have all been about MBTA communities, which is very clearly on the agenda.
Okay, so I think we can address them during that. Okay, thank you very much. I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share their thoughts. Next, we have Ms. Stenson.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I am Mary Stenson, and I live at 91 Sias Lane. I am in Precinct 3. I'm here as a taxpayer, a healthcare provider, and a member of the Board of Health to highlight a critical issue facing Milton and the broader South Shore Norfolk County region: the ongoing crisis in healthcare capacity due to recent hospital closures and population growth. The Board of Health formally requested that the Governor and the Department of Public Health conduct a healthcare capacity audit for our region. Given the wave of hospital closures, I want to share with the public some excerpts of the response from Dr. Robbie Goldstein, Commissioner of the Department of the Public Health. Dr. Goldstein acknowledged that the combination of hospital closures and a rapid population growth in Milton and surrounding communities is a matter of critical concern. He specifically noted that hospitals nearest to Milton, including Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital Milton, are experiencing significant capacity strains. The South Shore has already lost substantial healthcare capacity, and this will be further exacerbated by increased population due to the MBTA Communities Act. The basic math is stark. Reduced hospital capacity, ongoing staffing and ambulance shortages, and a rapidly growing population create a recipe for disaster for our healthcare system. A recent publication of the Mass Health and Hospital Associations from July 2024 highlighted the South Shore Hospital that is operating at crisis levels. Every licensed patient space is full, including hallways and converted rooms. Since the closure of nearby facilities, the emergency department volume has increased 27%, and inpatient admissions are up 38% compared to pre-pandemic levels. The hospital is now running 550 inpatients in a facility licensed for 374 beds. These numbers are not sustainable, and every additional closure or population increase worsens the strain. While Dr. Goldstein and his team are aware of the crisis and are working on interventions, it is doubtful that the full impact of the MBTA Communities Act and ongoing population growth is being considered in current planning. Regulatory authorities have not yet presented a plan to create a healthcare capacity safety net for the South Shore, nor have they provided a roadmap for how increased populations will be served in the next 5, 10, or 20 years.
You have 5 seconds.
If there is a plan to increase density, what is your plan to ensure our residents can access timely, high-quality health care? Without a concrete strategy,
you.
we risk overwhelming our already strained hospitals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see we have 2 hands online, so how much time do we have left, Mr. Milan, on the overall?
13:30.
Why don't we promote Katie Langen, was the first one to have her hand up, and then we'll go back and we'll start alternating from the in-person.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great, thank you. My name's Katie Lagan. My address is 544 Brook Road. I'm here to say that our town has been divided over the MBTA Communities Act, and that's an understatement. The debate has been passionate and at times contentious, but I believe we can find a path forward that respects both the spirit of the law and the unique character of our community. I want to acknowledge and thank our state for his leadership on this issue. Senator Driscoll has made the first real public effort by an elected official to advocate for our town's reclassification. His presentation to his colleagues on behalf of Milton was thorough and compelling. Importantly, he also encouraged town meeting members to approve a 10% plan. Why wouldn't we take his advice? Senator Driscoll is our elected Democratic state senator, and he's working diligently to represent our interests at the state level. I wonder if any of our elected Milton officials advocating for 25% have reached out to our senator. I'm here tonight to advocate for a 10% plan to be forwarded to town meeting members. I believe that proposing a 10% plan and working collaboratively with the state may be the best way to bring us back together as a community. Such a plan demonstrates a good faith effort to comply with the intent of the MBTA Communities Act, namely to create housing near transit stations. A 25% plan, in my view, does not achieve this goal. Instead, it risks shoehorning zoning changes that generate animosity among neighbors and further divides our town. I've noticed that some elected officials seem to have an inside track with the Office of Housing and Livable Communities. I'm left wondering why these officials are not working more closely with those advocating for a 10% plan. If the state perceives that we're not working together here in Milton, it's unlikely that they'll consider our request for a 10% plan favorably. I urge you all, our boards, our state senator, and our planning officials to work together to submit a 10% plan. Finally, I believe it will be helpful for everyone to see the net new units by district with each proposed change to the zoning plan. These are the numbers that matter the most. The potential new units that could be added in each area. Providing this data would bring clarity and transparency
30
to
seconds.
the process.
It's the only way they can
And finally, thank you all for your hard work and for striving to meet what at times feels like an impossible ask. I appreciate your service and your dedication to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So then back to the in-person, we have Mr. Hiss.
Thank you. Bob Hiss, 273 Adams Street, Precinct 3, former town moderator and Precinct 3 town meeting member. So I'm here not to talk about content tonight, but just about process, particularly the process of town meeting. And town meeting really, the town relies on town meeting, and town meeting relies on the warrant committee, and the warrant committee relies on the content that the select board and the articles come from. I'm saying some of this for the citizens at home as well. If I just go through a normal timeline, and by the way, I've talked with Brian Walsh about this, and in his 14 years as moderator, he hasn't seen so many last minute things come in. And for my first 7 years, I didn't either. But in the last two and a half, we've had a lot of last minute articles show up. And it's really starting to put, I think, undue pressure on the warrant committee, and they're going to get rushed, and that means town meeting is going to get incomplete recommendations. So I'm urging a slowing down or a jettisoning of some of the articles, if you can, out of this. Here's a normal timeline. If you're going to have a meeting on the 19th, you got to have the warrant in the citizen's hand by June 5th. That means you got to go to the printer by the 23rd. That means you've got to have proofing done by 19th. That means the warrant committee is writing their comments May 5th to May 16th. And they're probably doing their deliberations mid-April to May 2nd. So you can see those first two things. That's when they're doing their annual town meeting stuff, which was already getting jammed up with things that had come in at the last minute then. So normally June, the warrant committee is kicking back with the beer because they're all done, because they finished their annual town meeting. But now they got to get into this. I've talked to Tom Cobwell. He said they will get something done, but it's going to be suboptimal. So now they're hustling. So I think there were going to be 4 articles originally. What I'd really ask the team here tonight is to consider jettisoning everything you can to give the warrant committee time to dig into this substantive planning board issue. I don't know if the citizens petition has come in too late. It's come in quite late for a meeting with something of this substance. They're going to have a hard time digesting it. I know they're meeting on it tonight. I think some of the members that were elected recently talked about their executive experience, and sometimes that makes hard calls where you can't make everybody happy. But just in terms of process, I'd really encourage you to throw everything overboard you can for this town meeting. Protect the warrant committee, protect the town meeting members, and that'll help for a better outcome for everyone. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Going back online, we have Justin Heron, I think. Could you promote him, Nick? And how are we for overall time?
8:25.
Okay. Mr. Heron, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you, so please go ahead.
Hi. Hi, my name is Justin Heron. I live at 265 Elliott Street, Precinct 2. I'm here to support a 10% plan. I'll tell you why. I just want to give some facts here that I think there's been a misconception that everyone thinks that Precinct 2 is pro this 25% plan. Just give some facts here. 1,081 registered voters in Precinct 2 voted on February 4th, 2024. There's approximately 2,124 registered voters in Precinct 2. So that's about 1,443 registered voters that didn't vote. And look, I have kids in the Milton Public Schools. I'm on the soccer fields, baseball fields, lacrosse fields, everything. And what I'm totally shocked about in this town, in this district, is that people are still not paying attention. So as much as you think people are, they're not at all. People are not aware of what's going on and what's going to have an impact to this neighborhood. And I do think the state there is intentionally been reluctant to reclassify Milton to 10%. It's been irresponsible and dishonest by the state. We paid $2.1 million for these 4 trolley stops, and Quincy pays the MBTA $2.6 million a year for their big stations, as Senator Driscoll pointed out a couple weeks ago. Now, if you look at, say, Cape and Valley stops, there was a MBTA ridership audit in 2023, and it yielded about 15 to 20 people are using those stops on a daily basis. That's approximately 0.07% of Milton's population. I don't know how anyone could classify Milton as a rapid transit community because of that. And I'll talk about the Milton stop and the Central Ave stop. I would say close to 90% of the people that use that stop are from the Boston side. So if you add even all those numbers up, it's still well below 1% of the population of Milton that is using the Mattapan trolley. I'm not saying the Mattapan trolley is a bad thing. It's a great piece of transportation, but it's not considered rapid transit for us to be classified to have that such high number of of net new housing units in Milton, and especially along Elliott Street. Now, what I find a little bit insulting is that Elliott Street has a potential of, from the last
30
meeting, of
seconds.
555 net new housing on this street. And people say, oh, it's never going to happen. But let me tell you right now, we're essentially handing over a fast track blueprint to developers. It could potentially happen. And there was complete disregard to traffic, small sidewalks, soil erosion, sinkholes, all the properties that are along the tracks. There's been no assessment or review of the impact if that gets
Thank you, Mr. Huron.
overdeveloped.
That's been 3 minutes.
So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Going back in person.
Oh, Tom Doherty.
Oh, Tom Doherty. Thank you, Tom. It's an excellent signature.
Thank you. Hi. I'm Doherty, Precinct 3. I've provided a handout because I think in 3 minutes I'll cover the basic points and give you the rest in that handout. Thank you. The MBTA Communities Act statute and regulations are the law. However, some people assert that therefore Milton must comply and adopt a 25% multifamily zoning plan because the law requires Milton to do so. Not so. Not so. Milton has a planning board proposed 10% plan that complies. It is applicable to Milton. Why? Because the statute and the regulations each specifically allow Milton to present that and adopt that plan. Because the regulations as written by EOHLC from the very start, and even now as they became effective on April 14, explicitly provide Milton for the choice of adopting a plan based on a half-mile proximity from either a subway station, and there could be a debate about that, but no debate about the fact from, or a commuter rail station, which it has, or both. And it could, so that's the law. And I would say that the statute itself says or, because the statute is clear. The statute itself uses the word or, thereby giving communities the choice. It says at least one district of reasonable size located not more than half a mile from a subway station, commuter rail station, ferry terminal, or bus station, if it's applicable to Milton. The regulations, and I've heard it said, well, the regulations don't really provide a choice for Milton. They do. 72081C itself is also clear. It explicitly says, specifically, a community that has developable land within half a mile of the subway station, as defined by EOHLC, or in the other part, or within a half mile of a commuter rail station in another part of town, may locate its family multi-zoning district in either. So it has a choice. Lastly, let me just touch on one thing that I think is important that does get some emphasis at the planning board. The RKG analysis, Town of Milton impact analysis, December 2023, it's got a flaw, in my personal view. It says this RKG analysis does not account for household movement within Milton from existing single-family units to multifamily units, which could potentially make more single-family homes available for families with children, and that affects the school. So those incoming students that are not accounted for in RKG study, they're not accounted for at all if someone leaves a larger building and goes to unit family building. And that itself is important. And that's another reason why 10% should be put forward. You can always do more, but putting forward, you'll then have an ability to measure how that affects the school costs. Thank you.
Exactly 3 minutes. Well timed. Thank you. Finally, in person, we have Mr. Walker. And Nick, how much time do we have? So if you could do 2 minutes and 15, we would appreciate it, Mr. Walker.
Roy Walker. I actually was here to talk about the most basic of neighborhood issues, which is street lighting, but I'm going to forego that until the next meeting and talk about the MBTA Communities Act. When the majority of the planning board took the position that the plan that had been submitted had a disproportionate impact on one part of our town. That would be the eastern part of our town. I supported them in that view and in looking to them to create what they said was a more equitable plan. So I want to make clear that if the plan that is about to be put forward is one that simply reverses that disproportionate impact, that is, puts an undue amount of density on the western part of our town, which is where my neighborhood is, then just as actively as I supported the planning board in that initial assessment, I will just as actively oppose that plan if I believe that it creates this disproportionate impact on the other side of town. So I'll wait to make that final judgment, but I just wanted to make that clear. Street lighting next week.
We'll look forward to it, sir. Thank you. And seeing no other hands raised and nothing online, that will conclude our portion of the citizen speak. So we're going to move to a discussion of the Select Board and Planning Board joint discussion regarding MBTA communities and MBTA communities overlay zoning. Chair Hall and I chatted briefly before the meeting. We've been in a couple of meetings, I think, to respond to one of our citizen speak comments with Senator Driscoll and other folks from the state and our state representatives. And so I thought it would be helpful for, in the interest of transparency, because with open meeting laws, obviously I can't tell everybody everything that happened in those meetings. And, Mr. Cohen was able to attend the one with Senator Driscoll. Ms. Hall was at both, and so I will welcome their input on both of those meetings as well, as was Mr. Milano. So the meeting with Senator Driscoll, actually before I start there, Mr. Milano, we had asked the senator if he wanted to put a written statement in to the town meeting. I know that with Budget Week he wasn't able to join. Do you know, did he?
He submitted a note to us for circulation just shortly before the meeting, so I can distribute that to members.
Great. Thank you. Oh, and here we go. Mr. Wells is. Are they keeping you busy in Boston? You're just in time for the. Great. So in our meeting with Senator Driscoll, I thought I'd first want to say, that Chair Hall and I spoke at length on Sunday, and I expressed my hope and she hers that whatever our different opinions are on this article and the law generally, that there's a strong need for us to really come together as a town and stop allowing ourselves to be riven by division. I've turned off Facebook, and I recommend that, but I think there's other ways that we can do that by moderating our own comments and just making sure that we're talking about, we're talking to our neighbors here, and so I think that's something that we'll keep in mind for this discussion, and I hope that I will do that myself. I will endeavor to do it, and I invite everyone else to join us in that. So in our meeting with Senator Driscoll, he essentially gave us his take on the concept of a 10% plan versus a 25% plan. And I'll be paraphrasing here because he's obviously more thoughtful about this and obviously much more well-spoken. But in his view, both a 10% plan and a 25% plan would end up with the town back in court. He explained that with a 10% plan, he felt certain that we would be found out of compliance, and therefore we would have to go to litigation. And with a 25% plan, he felt that there would be a referendum that would pass, and that we would then be out of compliance again, and then back in court, which was a little bleak for me, but those were the sort of the path. So in his view, the 10% plan would skip a step there in terms of the referendum and the vote. Both he and I and Chair Hall and Mr. Cohen, who was there, expressed our hope that we could work together to find a solution that minimized both the grief and the expense to the town. And so I thought it was a productive conversation. and I thank the senator for his time. And I invite Ms. Hall and Mr. Cohen to say anything more, or Mr. Milano if I've missed anything.
No, I think that sums it up very well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Then this afternoon, Chair Hall and I also met with Chris Kletchman along with a number of her staff from HLC. I read at the beginning of that statement just a quick statement because I had not been involved in any of these meetings before, and I felt it was important, and I always think it's important for us to really center what we're talking about here, which is not, I'm a 10% guy, you're a 25% guy. It's ultimately about the housing crisis that this Commonwealth is facing right now. It's real, it faces everyone. There was an article in the Globe this morning about senior citizens being the fastest growing age experiencing homelessness. There was a 17% rise in senior homelessness in Massachusetts last year. So the housing crisis is real, and it affects lots and lots and lots of folks at all ages and all levels of income. The second statement that I made is that the Mattapan high-speed line is an important method of transportation to this town. It is historic, yes. It's been underinvested in, yes, because of, I will say, systemic racism in the transportation sector. That is not to call anybody racist. It's just a recognition of the fact that a line that serves a largely black and brown community, as we heard earlier, tends to not get the same kind of attention that other lines do. And that we have been waiting for repairs to happen to the trolley. That said, I think that it is important to acknowledge that many Milton folks, as well as many folks outside of Milton, rely on the Mattapan high-speed train for their commute, for travel, and we value the trolley, and we hope to see state investment in that. And Ms. Hall, you also gave some opening remarks, and I'd invite you to share if you'd like to.
Yeah, and I echoed, what our conversation was yesterday, that we really wanted to unite the town, and it has been incredibly divided over this issue, and that has been really difficult to see that. And we are looking for a path forward that we would like to work with the state, but we have to look at the statute and what the statute says, and what is law. And we can agree to disagree that we have a subway whether we have a subway in Milton, and it is believed by a significant number of residents that we do not have a subway in Milton, and that we should be able to challenge the state on that particular issue, and also the fact that half of the land area around the trolley is not in Milton, and that we are being asked to zone as a rapid transit community for the full 2,461 units when other communities have both sides of their transportation. And we just addressed sort of the nature of the service, that we are far less of a quality of service compared to any other community that we're put into the same classification. So I ask that they work with us and continue to ask. So
great. So I asked, for the sake of discussion here, 4 specific questions so that we could have some answers for our discussion, and I apologize for grabbing the microphone to start this. I want to turn it to the open conversation, but I think as many of us have not been privy to these conversations, it's important to hear sort of directly. And again, I invite Ms. Hall or Mr. Milano to jump in if I get anything wrong here. The first question I asked is whether our status as a rapid transit community was negotiable. The long answer made short was no, that they have made it clear that Milton is a rapid transit community and that we will be treated as such going forward. I asked if we could receive an extension in order to get our ducks in a row, much to what Mr. Hiss was saying earlier, just in terms of the workload on our warrant committee and everyone else. And they responded no, and that actually many communities had asked for extensions, and that we joined the long list of people who were not, or long list of communities that were not getting one. I asked about flexibility, and I understand that this came up also earlier in a planning board conversation with HLC, but I was curious to hear their response around mixed mandatory use and whether or not we could have a higher level of mixed mandatory use within our plan. The response was, I think, short and sweet, no, and that we have lots of places that we could zone for commercial, and they encouraged us to think about that. And then finally, I asked if there would be any difference in our out-of-compliance status if we were to pass a 10% plan, and the response was no, that we would still be deemed out of compliance. I do want to say that repeatedly HLC said that they want to work with us, that they are happy to help, that they are happy to be creative with us, but all of that is contained within the box of us being a rapid transit community. So I found the meeting to be very helpful, very, very friendly, and it's clear that Ms. Hall and Mr. Milano have been in front of them, and Mr. Wells, who was there too. Actually, I should invite you to say anything about the meeting too, if you'd like. Okay. So that was pretty much the summary, but I would invite you to, Ms. Hall, to say anything else.
The only thing that I would add is on your final question, she certainly said that they were not looking to reclassify us at this time, but she said they would take a look at a 10% plan. She said, I do not know, we would measure that against what we had asked, being the 25 rapid transit, but that they would look at the 10% plan, they would review it, and she was not sure what the response by the state would be to that.
I heard it in that in terms of us being a rapid transit community would not be found within, but I think that's fine. Mr. Wells or Mr. Mullen?
I just want to read, I've obviously had multiple meetings. They've reiterated to us repeatedly that they will review the 10% plan, they will, and that, because pretty much that's, with regard to submitting a plan other than a 15, I've talked about a 10 and a 15 with them. Both Senator Driscoll and I, they've never once said that they would reject looking at it.
I think that's right.
And what also, and the other thing on the, she's been the exact same, and I don't expect anything different from HLC at this point. As far as
I got the sense that they would review it in the same way that a teacher would review a homework assignment that was turned in late and incomplete. But yes, that they would review it. That was the. I think
particularly I think if the town meeting passed it too.
Yeah. Mr. Milano actually had an excellent point, and then I want to open this up. And HLC did offer to take a look at the citizens petition in terms of a compliance perspective. I think, Nick, they say they were going to give a quick look at that?
Yes, they offered, as they would with any community, when articles go into town meeting to review for pre-adoption, to identify any potential issues or issues in terms of the regulations that might emerge. And with it being a citizen petition, with the zoning language not necessarily vetted thoroughly by staff or the planning board or town council, there could be issues embedded within that citizen petition that would be worth knowing heading into town meeting. And obviously we'll do our own review, but having another set of eyes reviewing it against HLC's metric and model and compliance calculations, we'll be able to report to town meeting where that stands if it were approved by the town meeting.
Thank you. And so I think, yes.
Just a question on that. Is this close enough to me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I just had a question about what HLC is able to review. My understanding is the citizens petition is based on work that the planning board secured through UTIL, and that was voted on, I think it was May 7th or 8th, to submit. Is that right, Mr. Milano?
Yes, I have not compared all the dimensional requirements within all the sub-districts against what UTIL prepared, but my understanding is that was the intent of the citizens petition. So we have, as a result, as long as they all match, all the backup information that HLC would need to do that full review.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I'd open the floor to comments from anyone.
Thanks. I'd first like to say that I had some business before the town, and I chose to voluntarily recuse myself from all discussions of them. I believe that this should apply to all members of all boards, especially where MBTA 3A is concerned, Because there's so much at stake for the town, we should all be mindful of the ethics involved. To recuse herself from all discussions regarding MBTA 3A. Megan has a conflict of interest because her personal interests could influence her decision-making in a way that is not in the best interest of the town. Her personal financial well-being could be directly affected by the outcome of any decisions made around this table. Because she is COO of MassDOT and is appointed by the governor, Megan has a direct financial interest in the outcomes of MBTA. As stated on our campaign website, she, quote, oversees critical operations that impact communities across the Commonwealth, end quote. And by now, we all know the wording of the MBTA statute, but we should really pay particular attention to the exact wording of Part C, which states, quote, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, in consultation with the Executive Office of Economic Development, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation shall promulgate guidelines to determine if an MBTA community is in compliance with this section. Senator Bill Driscoll has been advocating for us and recently made a presentation at Milton Town Meeting and before the Senate saying that the rapid transit classification is real and has long-term impacts on Milton. Milton has been paying disproportionately for transportation services that we're not receiving. Milton pays $2.1 million and Quincy pays $2.4 million. Being employed by the state agency that has a hand in promulgating guidelines and determining our classification is a conflict. And additionally, we should all be subject to disclosures and decide whether they are disqualifying. Thank you.
Thank you. I would invite members to consider my remarks earlier about refraining from attacking other members here and just trying to keep things on the up and up. I can tell you that we have talked with Town Council about this extensively. Everyone has been financially impacted by the MBTA communities because of our failure to comply, our loss of state funding, our loss of town funding. It's impacting everyone, and I would invite the planning board to try to treat our members of our board here with decorum, and we will try to do the same to you. And I would invite anyone else to make comments. Mr. Wells?
I will, but I want to wait. I'll go last. I can hear you. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I can hear it.
No,
So the tip of
I need
your,
a minute.
so the
Let's
tip of your finger.
You
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Beauty before age. You go ahead.
Oh, dude. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Wells, just pull the mic a little
Oh, I'm
closer for
sorry.
the folks at home. Thanks.
Clearly, I'm involved in this up to my ears now, way more than I ever imagined in my life, as you know, Mr. Chair. I give a little bit of historic perspective first to what you alluded to a little bit, because this is something I've had a discussion with on multiple occasions with both the Secretary of HLC as well as my colleagues in the House and leadership in the House. 9 years ago, the MBTA came to us in Dorchester, Mattapan, and said they were going to close down that trolley line. And I was a brand-new member on the select board at the time. Mr. Gaius may have been a brand-new member. I believe you were a brand-new member on the planning board at that time. And there was a lot of effort put in place at that time by Senator Linda Docina-Fori, Representative Dan Cullinane, to try and quote-unquote, it was called Save the Mattapan High Speed Line. The MBTA came in, I think, in the second year with this, and I've reviewed it so many times now I can't even count, this glorious $500 million plan that was going to completely rebuild the line from Mattapan to Ashmont. It was going to change the bridges. It was going to transition out the dying, fading away PCC presidential cars, of which there are only 5 left in the state now, and the MBTA owns the 5 of them. And they were going to complete this $500 million project by 2022. Complete it. I've been in the House now for 6.5 months. I check every single week. I look at we have just in my short time, we've given over $1.5 billion to the MBTA in infrastructure improvements. Not $1, not one improvement, nothing on that train. Similarly, the MBTA has built a commuter rail that parallels this line. The majority of riders, if you look at the ridership from this town, walk around and talk to residents, I put so much time in this, I can't even tell you. They take that commuter rail. And part of the proof is that when in the middle of a peak day, at 8 o'clock in the morning, when a trolley flooded between Central Ave and Milton, and they had to rescue the passengers, there were only 7 people on it. That same day, that commuter rail at Blue Avenue, at the Blue Avenue stop, which was the closest to there, was packed. Many of them are Milton residents. And that's when I first heard people like Tom Doherty and Senator Driscoll talking about looking at this as a commuter rail station started to peak. Commuter rail community really started to get my interest because I knew they are not going to fix this trolley line. And Mr. Milano and I have talked about this. There have been numerous alternatives. You know, one is just give us 10 or 15%. I could live with 15% and put a hiatus on it till you fix the trolley. Because if you're going to fix it and you come back 10 years from now, because we've been told now it may be as many as 16, 20 years before that's completed, then at least be flex, because I keep hearing from the governor's office the word flexibility. I didn't hear it in today's meeting, but I've heard it in others. At least be smart enough to give us a hiatus on something that you promised us. And Mr. Zoll, Chair Zoll, what you talked about as to the reasons why, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I see no beginning, middle, or end on that. And the residents of this town deserve to be treated fairly. This is the most divisive thing I've ever seen. To miss, the newest thing I've learned, to Miss Oldfield's remarks, she's correct. The town of Milton pays $2.1 million in tax dollars for MBTA operations. We have 3 trolley stations, of which, and by the way, when and if this trolley project is ever done, Valley Road and Cape and are gone. There will only be Central and Milton in this town. 2 of them will no longer exist because the cost to upgrade them to what they would need to be, so they don't have the ridership to support it. I think one's 25 million and one's 27 million. It's been a while. So the city of Quincy, which has boat ferries, multiple bus lines, 4 major MBTA stations, commuter rail, and the Red Line, pays $2.5 million. Braintree, which has multiple bus lines, multiple stations, commuter rail, and the Red Line, $1.5 million. So tell me where the fairness is to the residents of this town. I understand, Chair Milano's right. I mean, we have a housing crisis. Do I think we need to diversify it a little bit more? I do, but that's speaking hill, you don't get things done in a hurry. But I get it. And I'm not so sure 25 gets it done, but I agree wholeheartedly with Senator Driscoll. File a 10%, because my feeling is right now, I want the Attorney General to look at this. I want them to listen to his argument. I want them, I don't want to spend any more money. I just want them to review it, because I believe in the end, when they look at the totality of this, compared to what they promised and where we are and what's trying to be done in this town will prevail. And as long as Senator Driscoll continues to pursue this as a representative of this town, I'm going to do that too. And as I say, whether it's 10 or 15, I don't care, but to just say, give us 25% now and then we'll go, is just not fair to this community. With all the things that you promised already, that 9 years later, you never put one single dollar, and you don't communicate one single thing, not just to the town, you don't commit it to the legislators, not Representative Fuka Reed Oakley, Senator Driscoll, or myself, 0. And they have an obligation to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask a quick clarifying question for Mr. Wells? I'm sorry, and then I'll the numbers that towns pay, those are set by the legislature, is that right?
Here's a unique thing. It's set by when you joined the MBTA. We joined in, I believe, 1918 or 1920. We're one of the original, and because we joined so long ago, that set our rate. So had we not had any MBTA at all today, and we opened with a brand-new commuter rail station and everything, we would pay less by the formula than we pay today.
Can the legislature change the formula?
Yeah, but not overnight. But
right.
That's something that all these things, they passed MBTA, the law, and again, the law was passed by the legislature. is not the guidelines that you're living by today. You know, one of the things that HLC said to you today was, okay, we have X 100-something communities now in compliance. She didn't say that there's almost over 30 now. Milton is no longer alone, not in compliance. And to be honest with you, I get all the issues, but the problem with MBTA communities, it is not a round peg, round hole. For us, it's the trolley, it's the geographics, it's all that. For other communities, it's they have no water. There are different entities in each one, and I don't want to get into all that tonight. But that's why, because we joined it so long ago, we pay a higher rate than those who have multiple, much more than we have.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Somebody had their hand over here?
I did. Thank you. You know, there's a lot of talk about whether the trolley is a benefit to Milton. I believe it is. There's a lot of talk about whether the service provided by the trolley should be linked to a zoning requirement. But what we're looking at is a zoning requirement. That's the law today. So zoning changes are required to be approved by town meeting. I believe we are responsible to give town meeting an opportunity to vote for compliance. I have advocated for that as long as this has been before the planning board. It's why I supported submitting a compliant plan in 2023, and it's why I have supported submitting a compliant plan as of most recently. The lawsuit was sent to the Supreme Court, and a decision was issued in January that said that the law was in fact enforceable, and that HLC, that the legislature had given the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities the task of developing regulations to determine compliance with the law. At the time that they said those guidelines hadn't been properly promulgated. They have since been properly promulgated, and they still have Milton as a 25% rapid transit community responsibility. I have spent 3 years looking at how to make this zoning work for Milton. What criteria could we use? Where could we have districts? How could we make it equitable? I think those are the things that we should be looking at and talking about. The planning board has utilized UTIL in those past 3+ years, $100,000 of both grant money and taxpayer money to do that analysis. $50,000 in this last year of taxpayer funds to look at it. And so I really would like for the select board and the rest of the community to understand where we got with the 25% plan and to give it to town meeting so that town meeting can make the decision that they are entitled to make.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Mr. Fahey?
Sure. John, you had your hand up.
I agree we have a housing crisis. Oh, the microphone. First, I would like to correct Member Wells. I think they did spend more than $1. They did change the signs to, didn't they change to?
The only change they made was the change.
Right, so they spent some money. Just joking. I agree we have a housing crisis, but it's the fairness of the solution that is at question. What's fair? We should bear our fair burden of whatever it takes towards this housing crisis. No question about it. There's no question we should do that. The whole question is, what's fair? That's the question. And I think I've heard mentioned the right thing to do. I think fighting for that fairness is the right thing to do for Milton. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Fahey?
Thank you, Chair Zoll. And I guess first, thanks for inviting us.
You're very welcome.
For getting us together. I do have a suggestion, and it might not happen tonight, but my suggestion is that the planning board and the select board, one of these evenings, get together at Steel and Rye, and we'll have a Diet Coke together. And
It we go there now?
We can. Richard, I'm ready.
We can have an open meeting at.
Yeah, can we do that?
Sea
Yeah.
Island.
And I'm happy to pick up the tab. Arrange
As
for
long
your,
as it's Diet Cokes.
arrange for your own Ubers. I'm not covering your Ubers, but sincerely, you know, it's good to get together and have this conversation. It's been well said throughout the meeting tonight. There's divisiveness on this issue throughout the town. My point of view is, and I think if folks have paid attention to the planning board meetings, they probably understand my point of view. I do think it's impossible to satisfy the concerns of all the residents with a 25% plan. It's just simply impossible. And there are many concerns. There are many. In full transparency, I had the opportunity to sit down and have a cup of coffee with Megan. Megan invited me to a cup of coffee, and in a separate meeting, I invited Winston to have a cup of coffee, and I had a great conversation with both of them. And it was a really good opportunity for me to hear their perspective and their point of view, and they gave me an opportunity to express mine. We have follow-up meetings coming, so we've all agreed we were going to get together again to continue the conversation, so I'm grateful for that. But I'm 100% sincere about the planning board and the select board, Ben, getting together. There's no reason we shouldn't do that. And if we're going to ask the town to move away from divisiveness, it would be a great way to set an example. So if you guys
Sounds
could
like a
consider
summer
that.
meeting to me.
Well,
I
we
think
have
it's a good idea.
we have a chair of each board, and I'm sure the chairs can figure out how to make it happen. And if I'm picking up the tab, you guys can make it happen. All right. So you know, and one last thing on the divisiveness, this expression, and I'd ask everybody to consider this. What does "come together" as a town mean? Some people use that expression, and what it means to some people is agree with me. That's not what "come together" as a town should mean. We need a compromise. And there are some people in town that would prefer 0%. There are probably some people in town that would prefer 30% if there was a possibility to do it. The debate right now is over 10% and 25%. I happen to agree with Mr. Wells. I am 100% a supporter of 10%. I view us as an adjacent community. I do not see the trolley line as a subway. I do not accept, as we've been classified, as rapid transit. I do 100% see us as an adjacent community. We are within a half mile of 3 commuter rail stations. I have said that to Chris Clutchman in a meeting that I was in. That is 100% definitive. There'll be no argument over that. I also could accept a plan that would be somewhere between 10 and 25%. That might give us an opportunity to address the concerns that the residents have. The density that will be brought to, one of our speakers earlier tonight spoke about this, the density that will be disproportionate to one side of town is inevitable with a 25% plan. It's inevitable. And it's unfair to the folks on that side of town. That's only one reason that we should fight for a 10% or a 15% or something that's a middle ground plan to remove the density for the people on the west side of town. I actually feel strongly that if there was ever a plan that had a graduating percentage, it should be correlated to the investment that the MBTA makes on the trolley. That would make all the sense in the world. We have to remember, this was all driven around transit. The whole idea of developing housing was to put it on transit. The origination of this idea was not to spread it around towns, it was to put it within a half mile of transit. So to think that we would zone for 1,500 or 1,600 units along a transit line that right now has ridership as limited as we all know it is on Cape and Valley doesn't make any sense. But if the state or the MBTA wants to commit to improving that trolley service, we should correlate our zoning to the improvement of the trolley. Now, one of the challenges is, I don't know the exact number, but last I heard, the MBTA was somewhere around $3 billion in the hole.
It's closer to 5.
5 now, okay. You know, any agency that's that deep in the hole is gonna look at the economics of ridership and investment. I don't believe that the investment in that trolley has anything to do with anything other than that. I believe they look at the ridership and they look at investment and they look at all their costs, and credit to Mr. Eng for what he's done to improve the MBTA, but the last place I think that they could afford to invest is the trolley line. Ben, I just have a few more points and I'll close pretty quickly. I actually, one of the reasons I wanted to get together with Ben, with Megan and with Winston, is because I feel like they now are in a position that brings them a significant responsibility for the town. They're going to be asked to take a position on what I regard as something that has tremendous implications for the future of Milton, and how well they understand this planning that will go before town meeting, whatever it is, whether it's a 10 or a 25 that's before town meeting. They need to, as a select board, you all need to, as a select board, as you make this decision, to understand it very, very well. Our legislature, with all due respect to the legislature in Massachusetts, some take the position that they didn't understand very well what they were signing into law back when it was signed into law. No select board member in Milton, or any other town for that member, gets that benefit. This has been out there for years. So understanding every bit of this, including RKG's cost analysis, including how it affects each individual neighborhood, including, as Cheryl has talked about, the net new numbers. You know, when I said 2461, Cheryl quickly says, well, that's not the net new was less than that. Sure, the net new is less than that. But understanding it so well that you can make your full commitment that you think it's the best thing for Milton is critically important for every select board member of the town. You have no choice, because whatever happens to Milton, if we end up with a 25% plan, and if our select board decides not to pursue adjudication, we'll own that as a town, and as the executive body of the town, the select board will own that as the select board that accepted that. I would encourage the select board to adjudicate this. If we do adjudicate it, and the conclusion is that we're a rapid transit community, our select board will have done everything they possibly could for the residents that didn't feel that we were a rapid transit community. If we don't pursue adjudication, we'll always be looked at for not defending what a lot of people are expecting us to defend. $300,000, this number that's been thrown around, how much we've spent. If we were to educate 20 students for 1 year, we're probably spending more than $300,000. So when you consider the impact of zoning, and Mr. Doherty repeated something tonight that I have said in numerous meetings, RKG's cost analysis ignored what I refer to as the empty nester transition. What Mr. Doherty talked about was a family selling their home, moving into one of these units that's built. Now all of a sudden their home that's a 2, 3, or 4 bedroom home has a family in it. There's 0 students calculated that would be added to our school system. 0. That is not logical, it's not reasonable, it's not rational. So for us to say, geez, $300,000 is a lot of money to spend pursuing this classification issue, I would tell you it is a fraction of what the town will face in the future. So I advocate again, pursue classification. And I'll make one last comment on that. Mr. Doherty has come to probably countless meetings at this point. I happen to have high regard for his background and experience as an incredible attorney. I'd ask the select board to invite Mr. Doherty to a session where he could actually walk through what he continues to tell us as a legal foundation for our position. You know, I have yet to see somebody come to any meeting and challenge Mr. Doherty's interpretation. He could be one of the most experienced attorneys we have in town. and one of the most accomplished. It's a tremendous resource to have him. And if we are going to pursue this, it would be a mistake, in my opinion, to not listen to Mr. Doherty. Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. Davis?
So I had asked Nick a quick, I had sent a quick email to Nick regarding the 2-year moratorium or whatever on bringing an article back to town meeting.
You got the bad one, I guess.
So, can you speak to that, or can you
Yes, and.
I'll repeat the question.
town council speak to that?
Yeah,
Do you
so,
want to repeat the question, Mr. Malone?
yes, I'm really loud. The question was about the 2-year ban, and Town Council Peter Mello is here, that might be me. Yeah, it's me, sorry.
Is it you?
Yeah.
Do you want to use this?
Sorry about that. So there are a couple of pieces to the two-year ban question, and just as a kind of resetting the topic. Town Council had opined that the no vote in 2023, or 2024 really, may trigger a 2-year ban on a similar article coming back to town meeting, unless it was brought forward with a planning board recommendation that it be approved. Mr. Davis's question is, to the citizens petition, does the 2-year ban apply in that situation? And I think Peter could come up. I think he could add a little bit more color commentary. I would say he's still looking into that to provide an opinion to the town. For whether it goes on the warrant and goes to town meeting, that's a bit of a separate question. Since it's a citizen petition, it received the requisite number of signatures. Those are certified by the town clerk. So under Mass General laws, it goes on the warrant. Now, the next question is, can it be considered by town meeting? And that's where town council can offer further opinion. And then the other piece I'll just throw in is the planning board hasn't yet voted on the citizens petition, so we don't know today what the planning board's recommendation on that citizen petition would be. I think we can read between the lines and say what it might be, but we can't say definitively because that action hasn't been taken. So citizens petition under the law goes on the warrant. Whether the planning board would recommend it or not, to be determined at a future meeting. And then the third question of, if the planning board does not recommend it, can the town meeting take action on it? And that's something I'll defer to town council on, but I don't believe we have a definitive answer on at this time, although just the same article can't come back. This article is different, so it's a scale of difference, and analyzing that, I think that will go into it. And if Peter wants to add additional commentary, he can, Mr. Chair, if that's...
That's fine for me, but he'll probably have to use your microphone too.
Yes, that's fine. I'll slide up.
Mr. Mello, there's no mic over there.
That's a lurk over there.
Thank you. I think Nick summarized it well. I had opined on this question or related question back in January of 24, and basically concluded, I think Nick probably posted the opinion or disseminated it, so you can see it, but I opined that any new article would need to be carefully vetted to ascertain or determine whether it was sufficiently different from the article that was the subject of the referendum. And I had opined at the time, which is kind of a new question, whether a negative vote on the referendum or a referendum vote that resulted in the overturning of town meeting's vote would constitute unfavorable action so as to trigger the 2-year ban. I opined at the time that it did. So, but that was sort of a new question at the time, because that vote obviously was distinct from the town meeting vote, and the statute refers to the town meeting vote. So anyway, the bottom line is, it remains my opinion that the referendum vote constituted unfavorable action so as to trigger application of the 2-year ban set forth in Section 5, and that the article that's been submitted via citizens petition, while it is required to appear on the warrant by virtue of a statutory mandate in Chapter 39, Section 10, the question remains whether it's the same article effectively as was rejected via the referendum, in 2024, or whether it sufficiently differs from that article so that it can be considered by town meeting. And the other related question I think Nick underscored is that if it, in my opinion, and this is something that I won't go into the particulars of right now because it's a little bit, it's a little complicated, but in my opinion, if the planning board theoretically were to approve the inclusion of or the 25, or the plan that the citizens petition submitted, then it could be considered at town meeting, even if it were the case that it were determined to be effectively the same. And conversely, I guess, if it sufficiently differs from what was proposed before and rejected via the referendum vote, then town meeting's recommended disapproval of the article wouldn't preclude it from being considered by town meeting. So, that's the Reader's Digest summary of it, but I would suggest, Jim, that you look back at the opinion from '24 on this issue, and I'm happy to talk through, once you've read that, any of it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I'd
I'm
have
just
to,
going to repeat the question for the folks at home. He just, Mr. Davis said he thought that it was needed to be sufficiently substantially different.
Yeah, I remember when you mentioned it in '24, you specifically used substantially different.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back to the text of the memo. I think I quoted the legal test that the courts have recited, and I don't remember the exact parlance. I'd have to go back to the memo. But the question is, you know, is it? I think I opined ultimately that it would. You'd have to review the new article to determine whether it sufficiently differs from what was rejected.
Okay.
Other
So-
questions for the?
Yeah, I guess so are you gonna do that, or is that gonna happen, or we have to look at the article first? Like, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, the article just came in, and I'm happy to look at that and to address that question.
And then one more procedural one, if I may.
Please.
So if we go ahead, or this citizen's petition gets on the warrant, and then we vote it in, the town votes it in, then it goes to HLC, and they reject it, it has to be tweaked, and then it comes back to the town for a second vote? How does that work?
If
You know what I'm
it's,
saying?
oh, sorry.
So I just want to note there's a difference between, so if it's approved as zoning,
Or if
it's
the
a
town
zoning-
approves it,
if the town
and then
approves it,
HLC
it's-
wants to
right.
make an adjustment to it, and now it's something different, does it have to come back to the town for another vote?
Correct, so the zoning that was approved would still be zoning in the town, it just wouldn't necessarily meet HLC's requirements. So in order for those changes, whatever they may be, to be had, yes, there would be a new zoning article to amend that would have to be approved. But in the meantime, that zoning bylaw would be in effect unless it were amended.
Good enough, thank you.
Other questions for Tom?
Mr. Daly, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yes, so first I want to say on the point we've been making about divisions in the town and separation in town and us coming together, I will say that Megan and I just went through what at times was a very contentious election. And after that election, a lot of the comments that were made to us were about everyone coming together. So it is incredibly disappointing to have the first time we can sit down at the planning board for some of those same sort of attacks to be levied against us here in this public office. And that's incredibly disappointing. And so I would ask everyone, as Chair Zoll said, to not just say the words, but to live them. So I would ask for that to be executed, please. Secondly, we've done a lot of conversation about our feelings on the MBTA zoning, and I think that we need to kind of move past that in terms of what we've been elected to do. So I will ask for the planning board. I think what's been said from the meetings, what I understand is that HLC has shared no indication that they will change our classification. Am I wrong in that?
No.
Right? My understanding of the history, so we're talking about understanding, is that since August of either 22 or 23, there have been no reclassifications for any communities.
Oh, yeah, there were. Oh, my God.
Who's that?
After the,
Who's that?
after August of 23?
August of 23 was the last one.
No, the last one was last month, Middleborough.
Not a reclassification.
Yeah, they were.
They remain the exact same classification. They had an issue about one of their districts. It was not a reclassification.
Mr. Milano, maybe.
Yes, Middleborough, under the regs, you can do a 40R district if it reaches HLC's approval. Nothing about the regulations for Middleborough changed. What changed was HLC's application and interpretation of how they're using their 40R district. In addition to that, Middleborough is now planning to move forward with additional zoning that would be 40R, that would have to meet HLC's approval. So the regs didn't change, the classification, the number of units that they have to produce hasn't changed, just probably some tweaks to how the 40R rule is being applied.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Milano.
Thank you.
And just before you continue, Mr. Daley, just for everyone, if we can let our speakers speak without fact-checking them, I think everyone's been accorded that courtesy tonight, so please continue, Mr.
That's
Daley.
fine. So I would then ask the planning board, without any reclassification, without any indication from HLC that we will be reclassified, what is the thought process behind not giving town meeting the opportunity to see the plans?
Is that a question?
That's a question. Like, why were we not able to see it, right? As town meeting, if you wanted to put forth your adjacent communities plan, fine. Why not also put forth the rapid transit community plan? Because it's been 2 years at least since anyone has seen a new plan. So no one in the town, we cannot expect that everyone is watching all of these meetings, that folks are following along. I've seen the plans, I've seen them up close. I've gone into the districts and the streets and seen what the changes would be. The rest of the citizens have not had that opportunity. Town meeting has not had that opportunity. Our role as a board is to present this for the town to make a decision on it. So why would we not have given the town that opportunity to see both?
Because if you submit a 25% plan, you'll never get a 10% plan.
How do you know that?
I know that, why would they, so you're going to say, give them a 25% plan, meaning give HLC a 25% plan?
I said town meeting.
So if it gets voted in a town meeting and HLC sees that we have a 25% plan already done, why would they do anything to give us anything less than a 25% plan?
Are the folks at town meeting not elected to make that decision?
I guess they are.
Okay, let's try to minimize the
I
back
think
and
it was-
forth. Go ahead,
yeah,
Ms. Hall.
I think it was to avoid an inevitable referendum again. This is my goal, is we've discussed it, that this is, and that's what Bill Driscoll was, what he was saying. He said, you know, we have a 10%, 25%. When you look at the numbers and what I think was not in the citizens petition, you didn't have the calculations in that. So I would think before the select board votes on anything, the select board needs to see that table, the calculations table that UTIL provided, because you'll see 500 units down in Milton Village. I mean, these numbers are huge to get to a 25%. I don't think residents even can imagine what 500 units would look like in the Milton Village. I think that needs to be understood. We didn't have a really good RKG, the financial analysis. We really don't know the costs. I know there's risks in doing a 10% plan, but there are tremendous risks in doing a 25. And unless I think the select board really can wrap their heads and understand what the long-term potential, because it's not just next year or in a couple of years. This is a long-term zoning decision for our town, and it is the largest zoning initiative ever in Milton, and has the potential to really cost the town financially and physically, with on-street parking, everything that would be required that we heard from the residents. And honestly, we listened to the residents, and we really did try to do our best. But when you have are forced to do a 25% plan, the impacts will be long-term, have potential significance. And I think our board, I'm not sure if, and we actually don't believe we have a subway. So we were just advocating for a 10% plan. We respect if another body, if the citizens want to put a 25%, if they're confident, if town meeting is confident that they understand all the issues involved. I respect that. That's democracy. But I think for our board, we were supporting the 10, but we would understand if you adopt, the citizens petition and you want to put it forth. All of our meetings are public meetings, so we have every meeting a time for citizens speak, an opportunity for the residents. Everything's posted on the website. We do our best, and I'm planning to do that we will do a public hearing. We have to do a public hearing on all of our articles. If the citizens petition and the select board decide that they want to do the 25%.
We don't have a decision, it has to go on the warrant.
Yep.
If it's a citizens petition, it's no discussion, it goes on the warrant.
It just goes on the warrant.
Yeah.
So, but I would be happy to, I think it's important to have a presentation because I think we owe it to the residents that we do have that. But when the planning board was looking at the numbers and the calculations table on that, it was, and the question of, there's currently HLC is in litigation over unfunded mandates. I don't think does the select board, have you talked about what it would mean to challenge the unfunded mandate? Because towns are jumping in on this, and I think Weston was the last one to jump in. Many other towns, it's going down to Plymouth Court, but that is something that maybe we would be interested in hearing the outcome of those court decisions.
So just to answer
yeah,
that question,
yeah.
we did discuss that under the leadership of my predecessor, Mr. Wells, and decided not to jump into that simply because there were already towns that were involved, and there was no need for us to add our name to the list. Mr. Daly,
I have a.
Sorry.
I have some,
Mr. Daly, may I just provide a couple of comments
Yes,
in
please.
response to your question? The majority, in fact, all members of, well, perhaps not all, members of this board have advocated for submitting a 10% and a 25% plan for a year, and took a vote on May 8th to submit a 25% plan, having already taken a vote to submit a 10% plan to HLC. Less than a week later, the rest of the members voted to rescind that for reasons that they will each be able to articulate to you. As I said, I have looked at this as a responsibility to do the best plan that we can to submit to town meeting, for town meeting to take that vote. That's our responsibility as a planning board. For 3 years, there's been the same guiding principles about how to do this, and I'd like to just read those few guiding principles. The first is to preserve the physical character of the town. The second is to not exceed the requirements in the statute and in the regs. The third is to disincentivize tear downs. The fourth, to avoid rezoning historic districts and parcels with historic structures. The fifth, to zone larger non-residential parcels to prevent displacement and minimize impacts. The sixth is to take advantage of existing multifamily housing. The seventh, to site districts in transit and amenity-rich areas. I think I'm on 7 or 8 now. To encourage,
I wasn't counting, sorry.
to encourage mixed use so as to not lose our business districts. To evaluate the affordable housing potential of these districts because we have limits on what we can require for affordability based on the regs. To analyze the potential of the roadways to handle the vehicle traffic depending upon where the districts are located, and to consider flood risk. And so as we think about the districts, there's also the regs. The regs require that 50% of the zone capacity and 50% of the land area be within a half a mile of the transit. That doesn't mean just the subway or the trolley. It also means the commuter rail, and we can do both. We don't have to pick one or the other. And we've looked at, because 50% of the land area within a half mile falls outside of our borders, the regs allow us flexibility to put 50% of the zone capacity in other parts of town so as to spread the unit capacity in other parts of town. So in my view, as I said earlier, is that's what we should be talking about. We should be looking at, is it a fair plan that's been proposed after these years of work? And look at these districts so that the communities that are impacted, in particular by this zoning, understand them before their town meeting members take a vote.
Member guys, I would agree with you on that. And I think my larger point, I'm asking the questions, is that none of the boards, as we sit, I don't feel that we should hold the information from the town. If you all have done work and work has been put forth, I would have liked, because I've been a resident longer than I've sat on any of these boards, I certainly would have liked an update as a citizen as to where we were over the last 2 years. If we would have had multiple plans, whether they were adjacent or whether they were rapid transit, so that folks understood all of the potential changes. In watching your meetings, and in one of your last meeting, there were some folks who lived near the Fairmont line who called and had questions because that had not been included previously. And those are the sorts of things when I'm talking about the process or asking about the process of what do we bring to the town meeting and to the town in what have we been working on and what does this all mean 2 years later. So I think we're all very confused as to what this means. In terms of us being in rapid transit, I thank you for sharing that we get to use the rest of Milton since we're adjacent to Boston, since that was brought up earlier. But I'm much more concerned in the conversation we have with the town about what we've built and not being able to show them all the work that's been done, I think is incredibly disappointing. So I would ask a question to Mr. Milano. What is the process now at town meeting for the presentation of the rapid transit plan? If the planning board does not support it, who speaks to it on the warrant?
For the citizens petition.
Representatives or folks involved with that citizens petition. We saw one of them this evening, and
Okay.
she's been actively involved in that effort.
Make it
So
too quiet again.
So just, again, for folks who are watching who may not follow all these meetings, so does that mean at town meeting, the planning board may speak to their adjacent plan that they've been working on with the consultants in depth, and that a citizen that has not been as in depth with our rapid transit plan speaks to the benefits of that?
Yes, that would be correct. Unless as I noted before, the planning board, and I don't expect necessarily that they would recommend it, they could certainly take that vote to recommend it. But yes, a citizen, and I'd have to work with the moderator to determine that would be able to speak to the article, although not necessarily with the expertise that you're alluding to.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Dan? Would we be able to get UTIL in to maybe make up the presentation?
That, if they were available and had capacity, then I don't see why not. I know we had reached out to similarly MAPC for the East Milton overlay to see if they could come in. Unfortunately, they're tied up for that article, but if a consultant were to be available, then that could conceivably be an idea, just in order to clearly articulate what the zoning would mean.
Yes.
So the members have that awareness.
May I speak?
Oh, I was just going to say, the other option that I suggested to Ben was that we have UTIL present both prior to town meeting. And so all town meeting members, as well as the residents, would have an opportunity to view that and to be able to see both plans presented, is what I had mentioned if the citizens brought it forward.
Yeah. Sorry, Ms. Oldfield first, and then you.
So I would caution having any town resources put behind a citizen's petition. I think that sets a bad precedent. I personally have been through a citizen's petition for my own business, and I had to do all the work. I incurred all the costs. I had to hire an attorney. I had to petition all the town meeting members. And I think it is a very bad precedent that we're going to be setting for ourselves. And I don't think that is a road we want to go down. The citizens petition is outlined in a legal way, and I think we need to follow that. And I just want to explain why I support the 10%. After thorough evaluation for 3 years, this planning board has spent, I've lost count how many hours and hours and hours and hours. Sometimes our meetings go until just about midnight. So it is unfortunate, and I feel badly for those residents who are not fully aware of what's going on, but it hasn't been for lack of transparency or opportunity. We all are available, practically 24/7 to answer any residents' questions. And we have done the research. We were elected to look out for the health and welfare of our residents, and I believe that we all have. All of us have had different reasons for either supporting a 10%, not supporting a 10%, supporting a 25, 15. We all have our own opinions, and we've all ended up where we have ended up for various reasons. But sometimes a decision to discontinue a particular project or a course of action is okay. Yes, sometimes money is spent, and sometimes you must spend some money to save money in the long term. Again, $300,000 is a lot of money, but it really isn't that much money. I have spent more than that to be able to operate my business in town. My little business, which we're celebrating 60 years, I've spent more than that to be able to operate here. So it's actually not a lot of money to protect the character and health and welfare of our residents in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Oldfield. Just mindful of your comment about midnight, we don't roll that way here. So I would invite Mr. Wells, you were going to say something. Ms. Hegarty, you haven't spoken yet, so I'd like to invite you to say something, and then maybe Ms. Hall and I can offer some closing comments. Does that sound right?
Sounds good.
Thank you. Mr. Wells?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Daly, were you finished?
Mr. Chair, first I want to echo, I agree with Mr. Daly. We're here, we're all together, so we have to work our way through this. Just a couple of points of importance here. One is historic. Number one is, we've approved over 500 housing units since I got on this board. That's a lot. That's an awful lot. And not to say, and we're not getting credit for any of that. Most people don't understand that. That's a lot of units. Number two, when we talk about money that we spent, in my time here, we've spent well over $300,000 on one project. And Mr. Geis, you were the star witness in that case, 711 Randolph Avenue. Went all the way to the SJC, and most people, they never even talk about it. Don't even talk about it. Number three is on the SJC, and the SJC ruling, the most significant part of so many people, and I've met with attorneys on this, counsel, was to go back and rewrite the regulations. They immediately invoked emergency regulations, and then after, I believe, Sean, they said it was 900, when we were there, 900 comment letters they got. They made one change in the regulations. They included the Mattapan trolley line in their regulations. Then they also went down, and maybe I knew it being in politics, but I spent an awful long time as a cop and done hundreds of investigations. They went down, and after maybe 50 years, changed the signs on the 5 Milton trolley stations to read Red Line, Mattapan, and why would you do that? So that part of it does concern me. The third thing that Mr. Daly brought up, and he's correct, because he heard comments about the Fairmount line. I believe, after, I don't even know how many discussions that I've had, and again, even including some brilliant work by Mr. Doherty, I don't think that the HLC ever even saw that commuter lane. They focused on that trolley line, and that's what they looked at. And when suddenly it was presented to them that there were now 3 commuter rail stations within 0.5 miles, I think it's 0.37 is how close the closest one is, of the town of Milton and that the town of Milton could claim adjacent status. I was there when it was presented to them. I saw the look in their face. They never even dawned on it. So now it's true. So now, for you, not us, but for the planning board, you've started looking in other areas. And to Mr. Daly's point about hearing from residents, they never heard of this before because every focus has been on a trolley line that is one representative said to me yesterday, why is anybody talking about that crinkly old thing? It is great, it looks good, it's Edaville Railroad in Milton, and I ride it all the time, you can say whatever you want, but we have to figure our way through this. And I stand by the comments I've made. I've been all about fairness. I've devoted my entire life to protecting this town from the time I was a rookie cop riding around a police car midnights till today. Every street, every neighborhood I've worked in this community, from the worst days to the best days. And I believe in my heart and will continue to fight, not just from this position, but from my new position, to continue to articulate for fairness for this community while doing our fair share to continue to address the housing issue in this, not just this community, this region, but in the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes. Thank you for tonight.
You're very welcome, Mr. Daly. Ms. Hegarty.
That's Mr. Wells. Well, thank you as well.
I'm sorry? Did I say Mr. Daly? Mr. Wells.
We're often
Thank you
mistaken
both.
for each
Yeah,
other.
I know.
You're
Yeah.
not-
I can't tell you apart.
You're not the first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, everybody, from the planning board for joining us tonight. For me, this has been, the past few weeks have been really educational and edifying, just trying to understand the different perspectives on this issue. For me, so more and more I've come to the realization that I just think this is going to come down to an analysis and a decision around whether we think that the cost to the town is greater by pursuing an adjacent community status versus a rapid transit status. I mean, the state's basically told us that they see us as rapid transit and they'll only accept or designate us as compliant if we pursue if we file a rapid transit plan. There have been some interesting arguments put forward on adjacent status that, would require litigation, may answer, legally, get a court opinion on our classification. But I think for me right now, I don't understand or don't have a comfortable grasp on whether I think the cost is greater in either direction. And for me, my North Star, especially at a time when we just did a level service override and the national economic environment is not great, evaluating what we're headed into. And I know we say we've spent $300,000 on legal fees. I tend to look at it as an impact overall. So thinking about, not just money that we've laid out, but the opportunity cost of missed grants and the cost of referendum campaigns. So I think of it as, a $1 million fiscal impact to our town's budget so far. But I still am thinking about this, or, taking this, with some curiosity toward what does an adjacent status mean. And I also have bigger questions about the cost of, just an additional, we may just be looking at a referendum no matter what. And regrettably, I don't think that's going to be good for the town. So I don't have any answers for anyone tonight, but I do think we have some serious cost-benefit analysis to do and work through and think through. But I think for me, over the past week, it's really just been made clear that a middle solution is not going to be feasible. Like HLC doesn't see a pathway to that. You know, I would have, and I've said this publicly before, I would have loved to have, you know, I couldn't participate in earlier conversations, obviously, because I just got elected. But it would have been nice to have had a pass at approaching, you know, some type of graduated participation in rapid transit status through, you know, getting to a substantial completion of the improvements on our Mattapan line, because I really do think that needs investment in order for this to materially be, you know, just realistic. And I do, you know, I don't want to spend too much time doing this because I don't want this to be a sideshow, and I think that we have more important and more interesting things to discuss than my, you know, potential conflicts of interest. So just, you know, for the record, so everybody's aware, one of the first things that I did when I was elected is I've reached out to the State Ethics Commission and I asked 2 questions. I said, what does my Mass DOT status mean for transportation projects in town? And am I eligible to participate in conversations about the MBTA Communities Act? And so just so everybody's aware, when it pertains to MassDOT projects like Chickatobit, or, you know, if the East Milton deck were still in development, I would not be participating in those. It's more complicated with HLC. I'm not a member of that cabinet, and therefore I am eligible to discuss that. So I did clear that off the bat. It would only be if there were a decision that were to migrate to grant making, or the ineligibility of grant making on MassDOT's end, that I would not be able to participate in it. So I don't want to distract us from that, but I do want everybody to know that I take my responsibility both to the town and the Commonwealth very seriously. And that's where that stands.
We know that's true. So, Ms. Hall, if you don't mind, I'll make some comments and I'll turn it over to you. You can wrap up, make comments, and then you can adjourn your meeting.
Sure, so I just want to say one thing before you wrap here. This has really actually been on my mind. I want to say this before we're done. I don't have a personal preference on if we're adjacent or rapid transit, but what I do care about is that we are doing all of these things with the entire town in mind. Before I ran for this board, as a citizen, I noticed we do a lot of things ad hoc. We do not do things in the mind of what does this mean for Milton as a whole? How do all of these things connect? So I would have thought that with the zoning, that instead of the argument being I do not, it would have said, what does this mean for the town if we are at 25%? What is the pace that these units would be built? This is also zoning, right? It doesn't come off the mountain. It's not written on tablets. We can change them as we want, right? And if we saw that things were going not in the direction that we wanted as a town, we can change the zoning. We just went through town meeting and did the site plan review and all of those things that put the regulations in about how Milton controls its local zoning. I'm worried that this argument that we're having back and forth leads us to worse results, similar to the 40Bs that we have in East Milton. We fought and fought and fought, and we got something that is worse. I believe that we had an opportunity here, and perhaps we still do have an opportunity to map out local control about what gets built and where and when, and also constantly being in review of what is being built and what it means for our infrastructure. I don't think this was ever going to be something that was set it and forget it, but I do not want the select board or the town to be backed into a corner where our only role is litigation, whether that is the state coming for us or us going back to the state because we cannot agree. Because if we're 2 years away from where we are now, which means 5 years with no growth, and we're still rapid transit, and perhaps we're in an economic downturn, we will again get a worse result for the fight. And that's all I want to say. Thank you,
Thanks, Mr. Daly. So,
Chisel, I have a really important comment to make, if you don't
please.
mind.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I
Then-
appreciate.
then I'll make my comment.
No,
and
I
then we'll-
appreciate
yeah.
this. This is really important. Winston, this is as of right zoning. Once it's in place, there's nothing we can do to change it, and it will happen as.
You can't change any of our
You
zoning
cannot.
that's put in
It, no, let me finish if you don't mind, please. There are, this is as of right zoning, and once it's created, the market will move how this happens and when it happens. There are guidelines that we've established. There are some processes with limited controls that the town has, but we're not going to be able to go back and change our zoning from a 25% plan to something less. Once we zone for what we zone, it is as of right zoning.
That, I appreciate the point, Mr. Daly. I don't think that that's correct. I think that we can continue to. What am I doing?
You'd never see the three
I'm
of
like
us in the
one
same
person
place.
behind. I think everybody's Winston for some reason.
No,
Thank you,
this-
Mr.
this is-
Fahey. I think
Your comments.
it's an important question, and I'm sorry to continue to get people's names wrong, and it's really not my intention. This zoning plan, and maybe I'll just take this opportunity to then make my remarks, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Hall. Leadership is not about making easy choices. Everyone makes easy choices all the time. Tonight, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner because it was the easiest thing for me to make because my wife wasn't around. Other people make hard decisions,
When you go
right?
home tonight.
Other people make harder decisions. Well, no, I wasn't feeding anybody, I was just feeding myself. Leadership is really, these are the moments where leadership matters. And I think it's important for us, at both as the planning board and as a select board, to not let our personal opinions or our biases influence the work that we do. I believe it's extraordinarily important for the town as a whole, as a body, through town meeting, which is our process, to make these decisions. I'm disappointed that the planning board did not have a 25% plan for review. I was hopeful that they did, and then disappointed. That is done and dusted in the past, and I don't think it's worth dwelling on. When Senator Driscoll shared his plan to me and others, I was very curious about this because I'd heard him speak about it, and I just have to say I don't think passing something that's not that's not compliant, getting sued again by the state, and then hoping we win this time is a really great plan. I also don't agree that we have an inevitable referendum problem. I think what Mr. Daly said earlier is extremely, and I actually mean Mr. Daly in this case, is extremely important in that this is not a conversation that's going to stop on June 16th or 17th or however long town meeting ends up going. It's going to be a conversation that will continue through the summer, through the fall. We will continue to look at this. We need to continually make sure that folks are aware of what's happening, what their rights are, and maybe we come back in the fall and make some adjustments to what's passed. And so I think it's important for folks to hear that we can do that. We can come back in the fall and make adjustments. We can come back in the spring after that and continue to make adjustments. The conversation has to continue, but it's up to us to choose how we want to continue that conversation. Do we want to have it in a argumentative way? Do we want to have it in a way where we can't agree with each other, where you see you as 10% and I see me as 25, and therefore, we can't have a Diet Coke together at Steel and Rye? I really hope not. I really hope not. So we're going to be, both of these articles are going to be in the town meeting packet. When we talk about long-term impact, I think there's nothing that the select board understands more than the long-term impact. We're going to be meeting later as the Governor Stoughton trustees. Governor Stoughton's been dead for 300 plus years, and we continue to meet under his name. So we really understand the length of time that goes into these conversations. And we understand the length of time that planning has on an impact on the town. We just had a $9.5 million override because for years and years we have failed as a town to create a stable financial structure that is not overly reliant on residential taxes. That is a long-term impact. We can complain about it when the referendum happens, or we can start making changes that are going to lead us in a more positive direction. Me, personally, I believe that this is a positive direction. I think there's really some great opportunities here. And I hope that even if you disagree with me, that you won't disagree with my ability to voice my opinion, and I certainly won't disagree with anyone in voicing their opinion. So with that, Ms. Hall, I will turn it over to you for any final comments.
Thank you. All right. Great. And I just really wanted to say thank you for the invitation to come and meet with the select board. It's great to engage and have these conversations that are not, that are public, that everybody can hear and everybody can learn in the process. I think a lot of the work that we did on working towards a 25% plan was really good work and really important work. But I think the takeaway for us, and I think maybe addressing is, and what Sean was saying, is if you go to 25, you're never going to be able to go back down to 10. But let's start at 10. Let's see how this works. Let's see what the state says. And we can always add more. We can always do more. That's the right of this town. But let's start with the 10% and see how that works. So I would, just hopefully you understand that's where we are. Let's start at 10 and we'll try to work with the state. So that's it. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wells.
So I'd like to ask one final comment to the planning board chair, because I do believe it's going to be compromised, and I have been able to be in many meetings. I would ask the planning board, if at all possible, if you could start to, and even if we get, by the time we get to town meeting, have a 15 ready as well. It may not be an article, but as we know at town meeting, there are amendments and this and that. Try to have an additional, there's a lot of time now between now and June 17th, and as you know, both for the center and myself, and Representative Foucault Reed, we've been working on this every day, trying to, and more than just HLC. If you could maybe think and have that ready as well for town meeting, I, for one, would appreciate that, if there's any way. You don't have to answer me tonight, but if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. And if you want to adjourn your board, you can.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Chair Zoll,
Yes.
would the select board as a group prefer for us to do what Mr. Wells asked?
I think given the timing, it would be impossible for you to do a 15% plan.
Nothing's impossible.
And I don't know that it would be a great use of time, but I think it's something that you could certainly consider on your own.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Mr. Malone, yes.
in terms of
process.
working towards that, I think maybe perhaps a future conversation based on this discussion here, but I don't know that an amendment on the floor to increase and expand a zoning district in a 10% plan would probably be feasible under the process, because there would be no notice there. So usually in terms of zoning, it's about narrowing rather than broadening the scope. So in terms of the timeline, if that's something the board was going to work for,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think your timeline truly is.
I was talking
special
about a
town
whole
meeting.
new article that was 15%. Yeah,
And
no,
I'm talking more about in
Are you
terms of
disagreeing with me?
in terms of being ready for the town meeting
Yeah.
as well.
I think that's right.
I'm just trying to get something done. That's all I'm
Okay.
trying to do.
So with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn from one of the members.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
And we're going to move to a brief recess to let the planning board depart. Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the May 21st Select Board meeting. Thank you again to the Planning Board for joining us. I'll call us back to order. We're going to move to discussion update approval, special town meeting, June 16th, 2025. I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to reopen the warrant.
Mr. Wells has made a motion to reopen the warrant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, so Mr. Milano, I have heard the concerns both of previous and current town moderators that the workload for the warrant committee, and I've also heard this from warrant committee members too, I should say, is a little bit much given that we're up against the deadline for printing. So as we go through here, I will maybe make comments about whether we can remove some articles, and if I miss one, you can just let me know.
Certainly.
So we have first. Does anybody like to go through these motions and read them?
So I'll read, so the annual, and then, I don't know, I didn't hear public comment, but go ahead.
Well, it's on this.
I got it, it's on
yeah.
page 2. So this is the citizen petition regarding MBTA communities, right? Am I right?
Move to approve.
So I'll move to approve Article, what article is
One.
it? Does it have a number? Article 1, to amend fiscal year 2025 appropriations reserve fund.
Second?
All the-
Ms. Hegarty, second. All in favor?
Aye, sorry. I
That's
was
all
sitting
right.
here.
You got it.
Sorry.
I think for
Okay.
the, I'm sorry, that's the one that we're supposed to pull off, isn't it? Or no? No, that's
No,
not.
I knew
Okay.
that one, no,
So,
'cause I knew you
I
needed-
spoke with Ms. Bradley, and she is fine to move the town light trespass conversation to the fall in interests of time.
You're
for
doing
the
that
warrant
on me.
So we'll skip Article 2.
Okay.
Article 3, the town treasurer has asked us for this one. Is this one that comes out, Mr. Milano?
Yes, and this one is about failure, enabling the town to withhold permits or licenses for failure to pay taxes. There is no immediate time sensitivity to this, so if, I think it's fine to remove
So with
from the
apologies
warrant.
to Ms. McCarthy, we're going to move that one to the fall. The next one, we will continue to consider, Mr. Wells, if you want to do.
I'll make a motion to approve the article for acceptance of property tax exemptions related to veterans and the elderly.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hegarty. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous?
Aye, yeah, yes. Excellent.
Then we're going to skip, I believe, the MGL Chapter 60 and the alcohol on town property for the fall.
Mr. Chair, if I just,
yes.
I would, for a moment on the acceptance of Chapter 60, Section 3D. So this would allow the town to have a voluntary checkoff box on property tax bills and other bills for donations to an elderly and disabled taxation fund. If it's on a fall town meeting, there are still, whether it's the third and fourth quarter tax bills that go out in December or the motor vehicle excise tax bill that goes out in January, there would still be an opportunity to include this on those bills. By not having it on the June town meeting means it couldn't go on the first and second quarter tax bills, but I don't think, we can still accomplish that purpose if it's something folks are supportive of, even if it's not on the June town meeting warrant.
Thank you, that's important.
So you don't want a motion on that one?
So we don't want a motion on that one, so we'll take the motion on our Article 7 now, I think is our next one.
Did you say you want to move the alcohol on town property?
I think from a number of amendments and discussion perspective, the warrant committee hasn't had a chance to weigh in yet, so they're looking to postpone it. I think the other thinking is that given that it's, the Attorney General has 90 days to approve it, that it wouldn't really be in effect until the weather has started to turn. But this, we can certainly have a discussion about this.
All right, I can go with that, okay. Just my thought is that, we put so much into this, and I heard from the MAC, you may have as well, I heard from the Chamber, and then I started to look back at requests that were made last year. Porch Fest wanted to have a thing on Shields Park last year, we had to deny it because it was town property. The Farmers Market, the growing partnership between Mass Agriculture and particularly local breweries and wineries, I could see this happening. I mean, the final, if there were nowhere else in town, I wouldn't care. Like right now, you could rent Dana Hall, you can rent this building, you could go in any building, and there's no anything. we constantly issue liquor licenses to the Eustace Estate, Milton Academy, Curry, the Milton Music Fest, Hutchinson, all the Forbes House can all apply for liquor licenses, and there's no comment. I mean, we've heard no objection to this from the police, fire, DPW, only the coalition. I believe that what I had suggested, and as I mentioned to you at the last meeting, I think that we should, as a policy, put in place for all of these, that we push all of these requesters of one-day liquor licenses to use the statute outlining the caterer's license instead of just one. We have no real ability or policy to do this. So I thought about it, and then I was thinking, well, it was a September town meeting, but we're probably waiting until what, January again of next year? So you're losing a whole year, and that's why, and I wrote a note to myself after Porch Fest last year when they made the request. I'm like, we need to try to find out, and it
Yeah,
doesn't matter
no,
like who,
I-
this is about policy, it's not about any of us individually, it's about making it fair and equitable, and which is why we created it in the first place, across the town, so.
I'm
I'd
open
like
to
bring
including
to
it in the
floor.
warrant. I'm open, I welcome comments from other members.
I have no preference either way. I think this is about expedience. This will take more time.
It's about expedience and the fact that, has the warrant committee reviewed the language on the?
No, and this is one they've not had a chance to review. We hadn't settled on final language, so they do not have it at all in any capacity at this time.
So I think in that
If
capacity,
they
it does
haven't
seem
even
if we have to
started
push
yet.
it.
Yeah.
They
Well,
have
yeah.
the version that went to town meeting, and that was rejected, but we haven't provided anything since then.
When
Is there a
would they
way
have,
we could ask them to do the best they can?
so why don't we do this?
It's either yes or no.
You're already doing so much at this point.
I know.
I'd be willing to make a motion subject to that we provided, and I'd be willing to attach the provisions that were given to us, I believe, from the town of Wakefield by Stephen Keel. I'd like to take a quick look, maybe we could take a quick look, but I think almost everything he had on that we could live with. Do you remember him giving that to us?
Yes.
And that came from the coalition, or whatever is applicable. I think some of it's
That was,
policy.
yeah, that's the problem. It was like a
Yeah.
back and front policy that we may or may not be able to distill into a bylaw.
Because you're gonna lose a whole year, you're gonna lose over a year. By the time of January town meeting, you'll be in the middle of next summer. And I just think of the growing interest of these type, which is why we created it. And, I hate to, that's why I feel bad for Miss Bradley, poor light bomb. That was
I
you,
know.
not me. That was you, not me.
I know, I told her, I for the news.
I just, when,
When I spoke to the, sorry.
I would think back to what former moderator Hiss spoke about earlier, about sort of the procedure and us doing this. If we jam more into this town meeting, does this get us back online with the proper procedures of getting things to the warrant committee so we can pass things more effectively and not have as many things that are happening in the moment? If there's no true pending, completely necessary event or opportunity that's coming up for the liquor license, I see no issue with moving it here. It's not.
I think that, he's right, I think they're expecting it.
Is someone expecting it?
The warrant committee's
I think they're
expecting
expecting, because we said we'd bring it back in this.
Okay.
And when I spoke to the chair this afternoon, he flagged light trespass and this one as the two that he thought would be require the most effort and the most work from the committee and take away the most from MBTA communities. So it'd be respectful of his
Was he
perspective.
requesting that
I think
both
we're
be
gonna have a
taken
town
off?
hall
Or
anyways.
okay.
I
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay. All
I
right,
expect
I'll
that we'll
go-
have a town hall
I'll
meeting.
go, I mean, we're gonna,
We need them to focus on.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay with that. So I will kind of help you, I'll spend a little time.
But I
on
think
this
then
for
this
you
board can
and bring it
We
back
can-
commit
again.
to a October town meeting as
Yes.
we had been slipping them to December, but if.
I think
there's
if
a
we could do
commitment-
one in October, that would be great, and then also that would allow us to get the fund for the elderly on the property taxes for the Q3 and Q4, which would be good. I just tend to agree from a process perspective. It would be good for us to have the language, and in a subsequent meeting, we can talk about the timeline leading up to that town meeting, as Mr. Hiss outlined, and making sure that we've got all of the language to the warrant committee in plenty of time, because we appreciate how much work they do.
You want 7? You want
So,
7?
yeah, so we're going to move to 7.
I'm gonna move to approve the article for zoning bylaw amendment on East Milton overlay district. You're welcome.
A second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Daly. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
No, yes. Aye.
Don't do that to
I'm
Lynn.
not, that was for someone in the audience.
Floodplain?
Move to approve the article for zoning bylaw amendment on floodplains.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, if I could just report that
Yes,
the warrant
please.
committee approved both of these articles as recommended by the planning board this evening. So they both
Thank
have been
you.
recommended, and that recommendation will be included in the warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Yeah, Mr. Milano and I discussed that in the interim break here, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't putting more work on the planning board, but or the warrant committee, but they've already done it. So then we'll be moving to Article, although I just discussed this with Mr. Milano, I think ultimately the MBTA community plan, the appropriation for MBTA,
No, you're right. We're on
the
9.
zoning bylaw, and I think what we'll do in the warrant is have that as the second to last and have the citizens petition as the last amendment on the warrant, just for discussion's sake. But I think for the purposes of this, we can still move to approve it. So
I'll make
take
that
a-
motion to approve the article for zoning bylaw amendment, MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I didn't catch who did the second first, so.
I
All right,
guess.
Mr.
We'll give it to
Cohen.
Cohen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
10.
All right, I will, then the next one, I think we are going to do are we doing the Clean Water Trust?
Skipped X, appropriation.
Skip to
10,
next.
right?
Okay.
Appropriation for asset management plan?
For the appropriation for MBTA communities, plans and studies.
So I
number
put
is
this
that?
on here
10?
as a discussion item, because if folks felt there was an interest in having a set-aside appropriation specifically for further work on MBTA communities around planning and community engagement and additional consultant work, whether it's a fiscal impact analysis, an economic feasibility study for the affordable housing requirement, which we will need to increase that from the 10% allowed. It doesn't sound like necessarily we would need a significant appropriation, so we might be okay to live within the appropriations in the 26 budget, maybe make an adjustment at a fall town meeting if necessary. So I don't view it as critical, but I did want to flag that as if this board was expecting to do a significant amount of work or ask the planning board to do a significant amount of work on it, it may be something we want to set aside.
Quick question.
Of course.
Where would you take it from? Where do you want to take it from?
Well, I think this would be, we would reduce the free cash appropriation into the reserve fund from the $300,000 that's left, to reduce that to like $200,000 and put free cash aside for this purpose. So we have $300,000 in free cash unappropriated. Right now, it's under this warrant, it's proposed to go into the reserve fund. One thing we could do is say, not put all 300 in the reserve fund, but set aside a set amount for further studies and analyses, and therefore the planning board's $50,000 appropriation for fiscal '26 would be available, whether for MBTA communities or for other initiatives the planning board may be seeking to chase. I will note that it means another new warrant article for the warrant committee that they hadn't previously considered, and we could, as I said, live within those appropriations until we get to a fall town meeting, and then appropriate monies at a fall town meeting if we thought that was important.
Mr. Wells.
Didn't you discuss this with them last night, right? Didn't you start to paint this picture of them last night?
I met with the warrant committee Monday, and I just
On
gave them a
Monday,
heads
I
up this
started
may
watching it myself.
happen, but I didn't say it was significantly. I said I was going to bring it to this board.
I think this is worth a discussion, so if anyone
Do we
has
have any funds currently appropriated for this?
There are
in the
no
balance.
dedicated monies. In the fiscal '25 budget, the planning board's budget is $50,000 for studies. They've been using some of that, but not all of it, on UTIL's work. So on July 1st, they have a $50,000 appropriation again in fiscal '26 for studies, for MBTA communities and other items.
So this would be if we foresee any need for additional work between June and October's meeting.
Essentially.
Yeah, so Mr. Milano and I talked about this. I think the idea here is whatever happens at town meeting, my sentiment is that I don't know that there's been enough of public education and engagement around either the 10 or the 25% plans. So if one or both, I guess, of them were to pass, although that would be a whole new thing, that we would want to set aside, so don't get any ideas, people. We may want to have a couple of community forums where we bring people together. I think the question of do we need $100,000 to do that is out there, but Mr. Cohen, do you have
I don't
thoughts?
know. We don't know if we need it, we don't know if we don't. We're trying to minimize the load on the warrant committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal here. I don't-
It's always tough to like come up with an estimate of something when you're not quite sure of what the scope is, and we're like scoping on the fly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
That's
Yes,
the
Mr.
only thing I'll
To
caution.
that point, having been through this exercise a few times, I'd be inclined to take 100 of the 200 and set it aside for that. You think that would be
100
enough?
out of the 300?
100 out of the 300, which would leave 200.
I don't have a strong recommendation on this. I think we would be able to live within our means until October and know that that option is there. Obviously, that is contingent upon us being certified with sufficient free cash to do that, certainly. And in light of it being very last minute, maybe it tilts the scales to saying, let's keep this on the radar and prepare for that eventuality at a fall town meeting rather than committing to it at this point.
But I'm all right with that.
I
thought you wanted
don't mean
it
to be
now.
talking
That's
you
what
out of it. It's just
I only said it because he
I know.
Put it
I
on,
figured
then you
Brian
talk
because
us
you
out.
wanted it.
We
I
wanted to-
withdraw
we
my
wanted to discuss
suggestion.
it. We wanted
I
to
withdraw
discuss
my
it.
suggestion.
if this board felt very strongly about
Oh,
it,
your
that was a
message
way to
units
make
are
it
up.
work.
I think we feel strongly that we don't feel strongly.
Right.
and,
I think there could be work to do, but I think we don't know what the scope of the work is, and we just need more decision time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there's nothing to prevent us either after July 1st comes, if we need to make a reserve fund transfer request. It's unforeseen, it's unforeseen, you could do it.
Yes.
You
I
could,
think
right?
so.
I mean, all right, I'm
You're gonna-
good. Let's
Nick's
keep
gonna
going.
I agree,
Want
that
the
would
next
be
one?
my recommendation.
So we done with, we're not gonna
So
do
that
this one.
we're going to pull 10 then, and then the Clean Water Trust, Mr. Milano, has the warrant committee reviewed that?
They have not received this. This was an oversight on my end. The town has received, or has been notified that it's eligible for an up to $150,000 grant from the Clean Water Trust. There are a couple of strings attached. One string is that we have an appropriation for the full project amount approved by June 30th, so there is time sensitivity here. I will note, however, that release of those grant funds is contingent upon MBTA Communities compliance. So we have a warrant article that would appropriate the full amount of this project, which is $250,000, $150,000 of which would be paid back by a grant. All of it is contingent upon being compliant with MBTA Communities. So we need this warrant article to keep this grant open to the town. However, if we're not compliant, it's a moot point.
How much is the grant?
$150,000.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair. I have faith. I'll move to approve the article of the appropriation of an asset management plan to be funded by a grant from the Clean Water Trust.
We have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hegarty. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
We're
right.
doing 12? Is it 11 or 12?
I think, yes, this is the citizen's petition.
So I'll move to approve
There's
this.
no.
Oh, there's no action needed
There's no
because it's
required action
automatically on
required.
there.
It's a-
What's it doing on here then? Sorry, I've had a long day.
Some folks are aware.
I'll take a motion to close the warrant.
I'll make a motion to close the warrant.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hegarty. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, well, that is that for item number 5. Item number 6, MBTA Communities Action Plan and Letter to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Mr. Milano.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The Select Board actually had already approved this last week. So we're preparing the action plan. Now that the special town meeting is moving ahead, we'll submit that action plan. And the Select Board approved my sending a letter as required as part of the action plan. And I will reiterate that request for an extension on the deadline. Might as well keep asking. And
Doesn't hurt to ask again.
we'll see what happens. So no
Okay.
further action required on that at this time.
So then,
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
a motion to adjourn?
From the select board.
Well, do
meeting.
we, Mr. Milano, before we adjourn from select board, do you have anything for an administrative
Yes,
perspective?
so obviously the MassDOT public meeting on Chickatawbut was this evening at 6:30 on Zoom. I was able to watch most, but not all of that, so appreciate MassDOT for holding that. That project is continuing to move forward. It's at 100% design, moving towards project advertisement and potentially starting next spring. I'll note that MassDOT and their consulting engineer have been in touch with DPW as well as some of the folks in the neighborhood about mitigation measures that they're looking at, particularly on Hillside, to help address potential traffic. And I did note there was a question about, a public comment question about how traffic will be managed through that. And Howard Stein Hudson, the consultant, didn't really give a great answer. We have documentation around how that traffic management plan will work and will look, so we'll get that on the town website and note and let folks know where that is to find it. And any questions can be directed back up to MassDOT. And they have a good project page, so they'll post the recording of that meeting if anybody did miss it online.
Thank you. Mr. Wells?
So just a follow-up to that, they presented to us the other day, Senator Driscoll and I, on this, and I really was grilled them about, because there's been a lot of apprehension from particularly the neighbors between Chickatawbut and Hillside as to will they not be able to get, and you heard me about what the queue would look, and we know the queue, and then particularly the PM commute now goes all the way beyond Hillside Street in the morning. They talked about it goes beyond 128. One of the things that they were very clear about was that queue will be significantly reduced, and they don't see it ever going near Hillside Street again, is what he said in the PM queue, because I'm gonna hold them to it, but because we don't have a roundabout of this nature in this town. I've gone to look at others that exist. This is really gonna be a new thing, and the reason is because of the angular impacts, the severity of the crashes that have been going on there for 20 years. So I did feel a lot better after really grilling them the other day about this, that there will be some benefits, true benefits in that corridor. It's not just safety, but as far as vehicular flow.
Yeah.
It won't be perfect, but
No,
it'll be
I think
better.
that's I mean, I think most people know that's one of the 10 deadliest intersections in the whole Commonwealth.
It is.
So to see some resolution there is really, really great. I just quickly, as chair's prerogative for a chair's report, I just wanted to offer our condolences collectively to Father James Doran, who was killed in a bike accident on 138. I think that was last week. Very sad. Please remember that bikes are everywhere, and always drive very carefully accordingly in town. And I did want to note too that there is a George and Justice gathering tomorrow at the Parkway Methodist at 5:30 p.m. It was originally going to be a march, and the Nor'easter has moved the plans to be strictly indoors. So they're going to be at Parkway Methodist at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. That's all I have
Memorial
for
Day.
chairs. Yes,
Memorial
Mr.
Day.
Moss.
Memorial Day.
Oh,
Ceremony.
Memorial Day, of course. Please join us for Memorial Day.
And
We're
Parade.
doing it a little
Parade.
differently this year. Mr. Milano, do you want to?
Yet, I will be gathering just directly at the cemetery, not at Town Hall. There will be no procession, so the ceremony will begin and end down at the cemetery on Monday.
And that starts at 11, yeah? Okay. So please join us there. It's a very moving, and if you haven't been to the Milton Cemetery, it's one of the most beautiful places in the whole town. So with that, I will take a call for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second?
You get it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so I am now going to shift gears, and we're going to call to order the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Trust. And welcome to our new 2 trustees for the Governor Stoughton Trust. We have a couple of items that we're going to go through here real quick. Mr. Milano, I guess we elect chair for this one too?
I think we had a chair and a vice chair.
Okay.
We do? All right, I think it's you. I make a motion to elect Mr. Zoll as chair of the Governor Stoughton Trust.
Second.
I'll accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain, I think.
I'll make a motion to make Mr. Cohane vice chair of the Governor Stoughton Trust.
Second.
Do you accept?
I'll accept, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, aye.
Nope, you can't take
Okay.
it back.
I've had a long day.
That is, okay, so that's that. Number 3 is the Town Review Committee timeline. I know Mr. Milano and I have both had some communications with the committee there. They are about ready to make they have, I think, a meeting scheduled in early June. And then their hope was that they could be called in to come to the meeting, our second meeting in June, to provide their report. And they've been busy reviewing the RFPs for the town farm. So we will, that's the timeline. I don't know if there's anything else to add to that, Mr. Milano.
Nope, they were asked to deliver a report before June 30th, and it sounds like they will get it under the wire.
And so that's number 3. There's no action needed from us, but that's for everyone to be aware of. And then for number 4, so when we did our committee appointments last week, we didn't have a trustees of the Governor Stoughton Trust meeting on our agenda, so we couldn't appoint someone from this group to that committee. So now we can discuss that. Just as a reminder, the Affordable Housing Trust and MPIC both send representatives to this along with other groups, but I think those are the only 2 that are affected by this board seats. So I'll take nominations for appointees of a trustee to the Town Farm Review Committee.
So I would like to nominate Mr. Zoll as a trustee.
I thought you were going to say me. I'm looking at you.
Had a lot of experience with this matter, attended many of the meetings and would provide continuity.
Second by Mr. Wills. I'll accept the nomination. I think I've spent a lot of time at the town farm, and I appreciate the opportunity. So I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain. All right, folks, so that's how you wrap up a meeting quickly. I will take
Thank
a
you,
motion
Mr.
to
Chair.
adjourn the Governor Stoughton
So
trustees.
moved. I'll make that motion. to
Second.
adjourn the Governor Stoughton trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you again for joining us, folks.
Thank you.